Logos are a ubiquitous part of the urban ecosystem. With so many companies bombarding us with so many logos in every facet of modern life, it's easy to tune them out or ignore them altogether. But if you look a little deeper, some of the logos you see every day have some interesting stories behind them, like... Number 10. The Domino's pizza Domino was supposed to be way different. In the 5 decades they've been delivering piping hot discs of cheese-covered dough frisbees to the masses, Domino's has achieved a level of market ubiquity rivaled only by the likes of McDonald's, Subway, and that company that seems to make every single zipper. With thousands of stores worldwide, the Domino's brand is almost universally recognized in the Western world. Domino's began life as a small independent pizza restaurant called Dominic's. Tom Monahan bought the store along with his brother in 1960, and after a few years of decent sales, he bought out his brother's half in the business for a beat-up old Volkswagen Beetle. Tom then renamed the store Domino's and set his sights on franchising the living crap out of it. Tom's original intention was to add an additional dot to the now famous logo for every new store that he opened. However, after only 1 year of franchising, he was forced to abandon this idea because it became unfeasible. Today, the logo has 3 dots on it to represent the original 3 stores opened under Tom's management. Just to highlight how different this is from his original vision, if he'd stuck with his original plan for the logo, it would now have 10,000 dots on it. Number 9. The Chupa logo was designed by Salvador Dali. Chupa are the OGs of the lollipop world, and since being introduced to the market in the late 1950s, they've maintained a strong commercial presence few brands can compete with. As a testament to how enduring the Chupa brand is, the company's logo has remained virtually unchanged since it was introduced in 1969. Then again, if you had a logo designed by Salvador Dali, you'd probably hesitate to change it too. Yes, the same guy who painted all those weird melting clock pictures and had a pet ocelot named Babbo designed the logo for a popular brand of lollipop. Dali created the logo at the behest of his good friends and the founder of Chups, Enric Bernat. He did it in less than an hour while the pair ate lunch. While the logo looked simple, Dali's masterstroke was insisting that it be displayed on the top of the lollipop instead of on its side, ensuring that it would always be clearly visible. Number 8. The original Starbucks logo is too risque for modern consumers. Even if you actively dislike coffee, avoid consumer culture like the plague, and live in a cave, you've still seen the Starbucks logo. Whether it's on a discarded cup tagged in a photo on Instagram with a hilariously misspelled name scrawled on it, or in every other scene of Fight Club, the Starbucks logo is as unavoidable as it is green. It's undergone considerable changes over the years, to the point that the fact that it was supposedly based on a woodcut of a siren from the 16th century is almost impossible to discern. In fact, in the newest iteration of the logo, it's difficult to see that the lady adorning literally billions of cups has a giant fishtail at all. It's also difficult to see that she's topless. In the original Starbucks logo, from all which subsequent logos have been based, the siren totally had her breasts on display. Unsurprisingly, every logo since has either had her breasts out of shot or tastefully covered up with her hair. Starbucks is so afraid of offending people with its original logo that in 2008, when the company released vintage cups sporting its supposed original logo, they edited it so the siren's boobs weren't visible, and they still complained. Number 7. The McDonald's logo is based on the shape of original stores, not the word McDonald's. That is a picture of Ray Kroc's first McDonald's restaurant in Des Plaines, Illinois, USA, and it's now a museum. McDonald's is one of those brands that will likely outlive us all. They're just too big and have too much money to ever fail. The iconic golden arches have been a staple of the company's branding for decades, and with very rare exceptions, are featured in some way, shape, or form on every restaurant bearing the McDonald's name. You'd assume the big M that forms the golden arches was derived from the word McDonald's because, well, there's an M right there in the start of the word, but, well, you'd be wrong. The golden arches are actually based on the shape of the original McDonald's restaurants, which featured prominent golden archways as a way of making the building stand out. The idea of including the archways can be traced back to architect Stanley Meston, who proposed the idea as a way of diverting rain away from queuing customers and motorists. When the restaurant decided to rebrand sometime in the 1960s, it was decided that the arches had made their restaurant so visible on the highway that they would become the symbol of the entire brand. Number 6. The Apple logo only has a bite taken out of it so that you won't mistake it for a cherry. There are many rumors about how the original Apple logo came to be, the most persistent of which is that the original fabulous logo that featured a Technicolor apple with a bite taken out of it was a tribute to the late great Alan Turing. Turing committed suicide, possibly by eating a cyanide-laced apple, after he was ostracized for being a homosexual. The theory states that Apple chose an apple as a tribute to the man who's widely known as the father of computer science. While that's a lovely story, it's pretty much all crap. For starters, the company is called Apple purely because Steve Jobs thought that it sounded like a nice word. There was no symbolism or allusions to Newton or Turing intended when Jobs came up with it. He was just in the middle of an all-fruit diet and thought the word sounded fun. As for the logo itself, the guy who originally designed it, Rob Janoff, has stated multiple times that it was never intended to be a homage or tribute to Turing, Newton, or the fruit of knowledge, as many have stated in the past. It's just an apple. As for why it has a bite taken out of it, that was so people wouldn't mistake it for a cherry. Sorry, Apple fans, your logo really is just an apple. Number 5. The Windows logo was redesigned because it looked like a flag. In Windows 8, Microsoft quietly changed the iconic Windows logo to a minimalist version more suited to a modern machine. And now, finally, it looks like a window instead of a flag. As we've already noted, literally the first thing a graphic designer said to a Microsoft representative when they were debating changing the logo was, "Your name is Windows. Why are you a flag?" That left the representative to flounder for an explanation for about 10 minutes until making up some junk about the logo meaning whatever you wanted it to mean. Unsurprisingly, the designer went back to basics and designed a logo that actually looks like a window. Number 4. The WWF changed their logo to avoid confusion with an animal charity, then argued about it for years. Even if you don't care about wrestling, you may be aware that WWF became WWE in the 1990s due to a branding conflict with the World Wildlife Fund. What you probably don't realize is that although the two companies reached an agreement about the use of the acronym in 1994, they argued about it until 2012. That means that two companies have been debating this issue for 18 years straight, even though they reached an amicable agreement about it back when Pogs were still hot. There's a joke about wrestling storylines never reaching a satisfying conclusion in there somewhere, but we're too busy imagining wrestling pandas. Number 3. Deadmau5 was threatened by Disney over his logo and immediately threatened them back over his song. Deadmau5 is a musician who often wears a giant plastic mouse head. He's built a respectable brand for himself around the mouse head to the point where it's recognized even by people unfamiliar with his music. To date, the man under the head, Joel Zimmerman, has trademarked his logo in over 30 countries. But when Zimmerman tried to trademark the logo in the United States, Disney decided it looked too similar to their own Mickey Mouse ears logo and tried to block his application. In response, Zimmerman did a simple Google search and found that Disney had used one of his more popular songs for a Disney remix, something he'd absolutely not given them permission to do. To make things even more hilarious, the video was accompanied by a huge Deadmau5 logo. You know, the same logo Disney said people would confuse for their own. Amused by the hypocrisy of Disney threatening him for using a logo kind of similar to their own while simultaneously illegally profiting from his music, Zimmerman sent Disney a cease and desist letter and tweeted the video to his fans. To paraphrase Zimmerman, it took Disney 10 years to notice his logo, but only a matter of days to remove the video. While the case is still ongoing by simply trying to block Zimmerman's trademark application, Disney inadvertently made it way more famous and ensured that it was plastered across the media. And while speaking of Disney, number 2. The Walt Disney logo was so famous that Walt Disney had trouble signing autographs. Here's a fun fact for you. The Walt Disney signature you can see on virtually every piece of Disney media ever produced doesn't actually look anything like Walt Disney's signature. In fact, the iconic, globally recognized symbol of the company isn't even based on Walt's signature at all, it's based on an employee's version of it. As you can imagine, for a company of Disney's size, even in the early days, Walt Disney just didn't have time to sign every piece of fan mail that came his way. As such, it was common for him to pass off this duty to a secretary or other employee who'd been given permission to sign things on his behalf. Likewise, for the Disney comics, Walt's signature is found all over them, despite the fact that he never drew a single panel. The artist simply signed everything as Walt Disney because it was easier. This led to a rather odd situation where there were more fake versions of Disney's signature floating around than there were real ones. Eventually, the stylized versions used by artists and his various secretaries became so well known that Walt himself had trouble signing things because his own signature didn't match up with the one that the company used. Finding a legitimate copy of Walt's signature today is nearly impossible without expert help, in part because Walt changed his signature so many times to try and make it as flowery and as stylized as the one that Disney used in its marketing. Number 1. The Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer lions are more badass than you. The MGM lion is one of those logos that's reached almost mythical proportions. While it isn't as widespread as the Disney logo or as famous as the Apple logo, it's arguably better than both of them because it has, well, a freaking lion. The logo has undergone several significant changes over the years, which is our roundabout way of saying that they replaced the lion when it died about 4 times. Don't feel bad though, because while the lions have passed on, their badass exploits haven't. For example, when Slats, the first lion used by MGM, died, his body was buried beneath a giant marble slab. When asked why, Slats' trainer said that it was to hold down the lion's spirit. Similarly, the second lion used by MGM, Jackie, survived a train crash, a plane crash, an explosion, a boat crash, an earthquake, and then another train crash. If that wasn't awesome enough, Jackie also adopted a bunch of kittens just because he was rad like that. So, the next time you watch a movie and happen to see the MGM lion at the start, remind yourself that you may be looking at a lion that survived 3 Liam Neeson movies in a row. So I really hope you found that video interesting. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button below, and don't forget to subscribe. Brand new videos just like this every day of the week. For more from me, why not check out another channel I do called Biographics? I'm gonna link to that below. And as always, thank you for watching.